so when I was 12, the war came to my part of the country. And I started running from it. Between 12 and 13, everything I knew as a child had been destroyed, including my family. And I ended up going to a military base to look for safety, along with other young people, and this is where I was recruited to fight as a soldier. As a child, I wanted to be an economist. I was no longer thinking that. I was a soldier, coming up in the ranks of the group that I was fighting with, and basically war became my life. One of the things they did was use the hurt that we were feeling from having lost family, from having lost homes, to say that the other people were responsible for that, so revenge. And obviously when you're angry, there's no sense of justice, you feel this is the solution. I saw a bunch of people coming slowly, they created a relationship with the commander. And then one day they lined us up and the commander said, well, we were eventually going to disband the group. And in order to show good faith, we need to release all the children. And so they disarmed a few guys. And so basically, I wasn't giving up because the commander liked me. I looked more like a child than most, because usually they do what is called verification of age, So if you are a 16-year-old or 17-year-old who's more muscular and taller, then they talk more to verify age. But if you look like a kid like I did, there was no denying that you're really a kid. You kind of were giving up, As a child, when I was growing up before the war, I knew I loved writing, I love literature, I love reading. I grew up in a former British colony, so as soon as you could read or write, they start to read Shakespeare. So I already had some knowledge of literature, but I didn't go to school wanting to be that, because I also grew up in a culture where you couldn't tell your family that you wanted to be a writer. They would think you're useless, It was very difficult to decide to write a memoir because I tried to avoid it, because I was having a new life and the flashbacks came and all of that. But I tried to avoid it so strongly. But if I needed to write about it, I needed to relive everything again. And that was difficult because all the nightmares came back and everything. But what I didn't realize through this process was that actually this was the final stage of my own therapy. It's the first time I actually relived my own experience, and therefore I was able to learn about myself. I felt that there was so much misunderstanding of people like me, who we are, and a lot of people who had power in the media were writing about us, but they've never met anyone like us. So I felt that I needed context. I needed to write to give context, human context, to what had happened. When people just hold on to their own idea of people and those stereotypes, and they don't take chance to really listen, you never change. So in Sierra Leone, after the war, what the government realized, because there were so many people who were looking at us and thinking that we're killers, we needed to be killed, we needed to be put in jail, because they didn't understand context, or they're just killers, they were part of that group, they're just violent kids. So they created dialogues in the community, where the community would come, and people would come very upset, and then would tell our story about how we grew up, how we were just children playing football, going to the river, and how the war came to us, how we were dragged into it, how we lost our family. And then you can see them thinking that, well, we didn't know any of those things happened to you. We thought you just went and embraced the war because you're wayward kids. You didn't want to stay home, you ran it, because these are the perceptions they had. I believe that the idea of believing that every human life is valuable, because once we begin to make that distinction that, well, maybe some people's lives are not valuable because they live there, or maybe they come from that tribe, or maybe because they sided with that person, so we can't value their life anymore, we begin to make exceptions to how we respect the value of life itself.
Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.